Selling an online service in 2025 is fucking weird, and I absolutely love it. Over to the left of the field, we have the people who have a full sales calendar. They're chugging their white monster, sleeping 3 hours a night, flexing how many calls they've got booked. When in reality, they have a 20% close rate. They don't really have a high self-esteem because they base their inner value and their inner worth on how much money they make. Shout out bro skillers. When on the other hand, we have a complete different set of people. They are selling high-ticket offers worth tens of thousands of dollars without ever going on a sales call. They have a line of people waiting to work with them, and no matter what they do, their brand is magnetic, and for some reason they just seem super successful with really good client cases. It's polarizing, isn't it? And if you're watching this, I know you're a coach, creator, operator, or agency owner wishing you were the second, not the first. I know that because I was in your position. For almost half a year, I was running a done-for-you operating agency, helping info businesses scale to 20K a month minimum, and it was going okay, but the only way I could scale my own business was by doing more outreaches, doing more sales calls, just constantly acquiring more without any real predictability. And look, don't get me wrong, it was working well. I was at 10 to 15K per month, but I just felt so stuck. To the point that at one stage, I was even a little envious of the bro scalers with no self-esteem. Jokes aside, technically speaking, I was doing everything right. I was serving my clients well, I was doing the outreaches, posting content, even running ads, but no matter what I did, I couldn't really seem to scale consistently upwards. I felt burned out, wondering what the fuck is going on. And if you recognize yourself in that, if that feels slightly like home, then that's good, because that's what I'm going to address in this video. You see, back in January of 2025, I was cruising around, say, 12K a month, between 10 to 15K. I had 6 done-for-you clients, and I was hovering a 40% close rate, which, not gonna lie, that was actually pretty good. I had some solid cases too, but I kind of really lacked the confidence to say out loud, yo, I did this. I had no real system that got me consistent clients and acquisition, and I had a pretty weak ecosystem looking back at what I've built now, and I was very dependent on outreach and organic, and trust me, I did not want to become one of those bro scalers I mentioned. And obviously, if you take a look and compare it to where we are at right now, currently I closed $142,200 with a 71% close rate actually in 120 days with less than 3,000 followers, a little bit more if you actually count the numbers on YouTube, because in the meantime, while I was preparing this video, my numbers did go up. But anyways, you get the point. And that only happened because of a very specific event, which I want to run you through real quick. Now, shout out Frederick, my mentor. Back at the end of January, I was on a call with him, kind of like mapping the roadmap to 50K a month. And he asked me a very important question. I got challenged by him. He said, you're a really good operator and you have some really, really good client results. Well, you have a pretty good system in place, a system you call the Imminent Growth Protocol. So Vince, why don't you just use this protocol on your own business and launch your own leveraged offers? So, well, I had a little moment thinking and I said, all right, say less. What would happen if I actually executed it? And so this is what happened after I actually went ahead and did that. My business completely shifted because I went from this high pressure form of selling to actually implementing a system and a ecosystem, if I can frame it, that allowed me to close at such a high percentage. And to give you some proof of that, let me run you through my numbers. In January, I did an equal of $12,000, like I mentioned earlier. Feb, we hit 30.5K, March 40, April 30, May 36.5, and in June, just collected $42,500. Now here's my Stripe. Keep in mind 60% of all my payments go through Stripe and the other 40% are through a wire transfer. And in the meantime, I hit an additional revenue, and mind you, this is only additional revenue off closes. This is not back-end revenue with payment plans or clients done for you that I'm still serving, of a total of $154,200. And I did that all across 35 bookings with a 71% close rate. Mind you, this is a brand new offer that I launched end of March, and this was without any high pressure selling, without any crazy objection handling. And in fact, almost every single person I work with today is amazing, a perfect fit, and they all came to me without a single objection, ready to buy. And that's what I want to focus on in this video. In fact, I did this all while having less than 3,000 people in my total ecosystem. And I don't want to flex by these numbers. I want to make that very clear. I just want to show you that there is a very drastically different path than all your average bro scalers make it seem. Like there's only one way to make money online, which is more, more, more. That's what I want to get rid of in your mind and show you a method and really a fundamental, I should say, not a method, but a fundamental principle and process that you can apply to your business right now that's actually going to help you scale way more effectively. And I'm not the only person who did this. Let me run you through some client wins. This is Nicole, who went from 0 to 70K in 120 days with her growth protocol. She's doing 20K a month, working 4 to 5 hours a day. She's working with her dream clients and really right now traveling Europe with full autonomy and a simple business. This is her Instagram up there. This is Caroline, who currently has around 750K followers. So you can see this also works for audience audiences that have way bigger ecosystems or coaches that have bigger ecosystems. She's doing 10 to 30K a month, and we did that in 90 days. She has now launched her signature trauma healing program, Phoenix, with over 100 members, which I'm so proud of building out together with her and the team. She has international presence, she's available on podcasts, and she has her own brand that's really strong, and she has the freedom to run a very simple business where all she has to do is focus on coaching and creating. Here we have my boy Charlie. He's a jazz piano coach, and he literally went from 5K per month in-person jazz piano coaching to now running a $25,000 per month online coaching business in 100 days after we implemented the Growth Protocol. And he has an optimized ecosystem, a leveraged offer stack, and he literally is firing his bad clients, for now people who he genuinely loves with a lot of predictability. And one thing I want to emphasize with Charlie that I find so amazing is the fact that he is running a $4.2 thousand jazz piano high ticket offer for 10 weeks, which normally you'd go, oh, but how's that possible? It's jazz piano. Exactly. He's that good at serving it, and he has every right to charge high ticket for it. And he's not the only one. This is Eddie, who only has 1,000 followers. He's a growth operator and who recently just signed a 25.5 thousand euro contract with a 20% rev share in just 2 weeks working one-on-one with me. And we did that because we optimized his delivery, we created his leveraged offers, and we gave him a very clear roadmap. And that is possible when you set yourself up for success with the Growth Protocol. So with that being said, I want to focus exactly on how you can make this shift happen within your business. So that's why in this video, I want to cover the exact shift that I took to go from later having a 40% close rate, being stuck inconsistent at 10 to 15K a month, and now running a 40K per month business with a 70% close rate on all offers, and also how my clients manage to do that. And the way I'll do that is by breaking it down into 3 simple points you can follow. The first thing we'll cover in this video, and I really believe it's important to do this because I want to cover how you even end up with a shit low leverage hamster wheel business. And it's important for me to explain the why and the context behind why certain things happen and how you even get to this point, for you to understand also how, and that's step 2, you can build a leverage business using the Imminent Growth Protocol. And then lastly, I'll run you through my 5-step roadmap for how you can essentially go from having such a hamster wheel business, a business that relies on high pressure sales calls, high volume of calls on your calendar, a gigantic team to scale, a lot of bullshit, low qualification of leads, and low profit margins, and a lot of complexity, to having a leveraged ecosystem or a very simple flywheel business, a business that brings you clients that genuinely resonate with you, that is simple to run, a lot of fun, has high profit margins, and a very high close rate. Now, one big spoiler alert that I do want to announce here. This video will not be covering what the best method to handle objections is. Like all the viral bullshit you see on Instagram. If that's what you're looking for, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to disappoint you because I have a drastically different goal for this video, which is to share a fundamentally different approach to scaling your business and monetizing your offer. One that is the fundamental approach I use to scale my own business. Of course, while having less sales calls and retaining higher profit margins. And to do this, I want to introduce you to my thesis. And if you come from a bro scaling background, I'm really sorry. Brace yourself. This is gonna sound very foreign. Because the thesis is simply, how can I serve as many genuine, honest, and amazing human beings in a way that doesn't sacrifice my ethics or my values, or requires me to go on thousands of sales calls in order to convince or sell to them, and much rather allows me to share my thesis, my philosophies through my ecosystem in a way by which they genuinely will make it so that I can serve them. That is the thesis. That is the question I asked myself for the past 6 months, and that is what has allowed me to scale my business to 40K a month, retaining a 70% close rate. Because the questions you ask when building a business are insanely important, and well, the answers you get are proportionate to your question. So if what you're trying to figure out is how do I get less objections, or how do I handle an objection, my answer to you is how about you don't get any in the first place. And that is exactly what this video is going to be focusing on. Because this is also the problem statement I'll be mentioning later on in this video. It's basically going from selling to serving. And you may go, huh, Vince, what are you talking about? That sounds so fluffy. Relax, you're gonna get some, I'll get there. Because realistically speaking, my goal is to help you go from that icky, sticky, I feel like I'm convincing someone on a sales call and it's really high pressure and they have to close or else I'm not gonna be able to pay my bills today, to actually going to a point where you can genuinely serve people in a way that's honest, authentic, and makes so much sense for both parties. Meaning that you serve an audience that literally wants, almost begs to work with you. So yeah, Anyways, let's jump into it. So let's go through the first point. How do you even get into the scenario of having a hamster wheel business? Quite literally, this is how it looks like when you're running it. You're just constantly spinning. There's no way out. Well, the only way we can do that is by understanding the market. And we're in a current phase that I like to call the trust recession. Now, quick little plug to a video that I made before this one. I actually have a complete video breaking down the state of the market right now in the info space. I genuinely recommend you give it a watch because I break down exactly what happened from a fundamental perspective, why funnels are dying, why ecosystems are coming up. So after you've watched this video, make sure to give that one a watch so you get even more understanding. But right now, I'll break it down for you quickly so you understand where we're at. The market is currently saturated with a shit ton of bullshit. I'm talking, go on Instagram, pick up your phone, go scroll, and before you realize it, you're already gonna see a shit ton of gurus, coaches claiming that they can help you get 10 clients in 3 seconds, and if they don't, they'll fly you to Bali, buy you a Lamborghini, and give you literal head as a crazy money back guarantee. I know that was a little bit dramatic, but you get my point. There's so many weird guarantees, reviews are all over the place, and at this point, people are just outbidding each other, and what we see is a lack of authority and honesty. I think the question that people ask themselves is wrong. It's not, isn't the market oversaturated? No, it isn't. It's oversaturated with a bunch of clowns and idiots who just want to make money. It is not actually oversaturated. In fact, it's undersaturated with people who genuinely want to do good. And it's really important that I cover how we even got to this point. So let's jump into it because this only happened because of the rise of funnels. Now, if you haven't seen a funnel before, that's kind of what it looks like if I were to sketch it. But the rise of funnels happened 10 years ago, maybe a little bit earlier when Facebook advertising was introduced. Of course, Facebook was a really easy way to get to people. Everyone had a Facebook account. So entrepreneurs who you and I both know, such as Gary Vee, Alex Hormozy, and so many others got on that. They learned and they figured out a way to use these funnels. And to break down how funnels work, essentially they are structured in a way whereby you want to basically filter the audience that you reach online. At the top of your funnel, you have the people who are aware of who you are or your services, but they don't actually need it. These people are typically symptom aware or unaware. Then we have the people who have consideration to your offer. They might realize they can get your help. Then we convert them, and lastly, we have the stage of loyalty. What it basically means is you want to filter down the customer journey so that your audience who potentially needs your help is going to get your help and pays you. And typically speaking, 10 years ago, funnels had a very, very low cost per lead. It was incredibly cheap. But that was 10 years ago. Because right now, the way that funnels work is they follow a very typical formula. Basically, you start off with creating a highly scalable offer with a money-back guarantee. I'll run you through an example. I'll get you 100 booked calls, 100% guaranteed each month, or you get your money back and $5,000 of cash. That's how a pretty crazy guarantee could look like. Who would say no to that, right? Then all you gotta do is you make a landing page with an opt-in for a lead magnet. Marketers, coaches, y'all follow me here. Basically, you put that big fat claim over there in that video. You make a little step 1 or 2, watch this video, and then of course, wow, that's so much value. If I get on a call with this person, they'll show me how to get 100 clients every month. And then all you gotta do is you follow a direct booking from an opt-in site, or they send you and spam you an email sequence where you'll be nurtured into eventually going on a call with them. And well, how it would technically work on the back end of these businesses is they'd hire a gigantic team of setters and closers to just sell you and convince you to be their clients because, well, it seems foolproof, right? This is what happened because so many service businesses, agencies, coaches saw it as an opportunity to just basically make money online. The question was basically, hey, how can I just get started to have as many clients as quickly as possible? But the truth is that there are real bottlenecks with this approach. First of all, there is no real nurturing happening. Basically, if you land on the funnel side, a landing page, and you don't actually book the call, I mean, you barely spend any time with the guy. You just see a fat claim, and at this point in the market, everyone's making a fat claim. So how do you know this is true? Ain't there just not another one of those? Well, the whole point of funnels is that it's just eyeball to purchase. Literally, eyeball to purchase. It's a really ooga booga formula of thinking. It's just basically seeing your prospects as cattle, and that's really unethical in a way. But besides the point, the reason why this is so ineffective and why it's so, I'd say, a trap in and of itself is because of what I call the 15% trap. On average, 15% of your audience is problem aware at any given time. Now, this is based on Eugene Schwartz's Level of Awareness. It's a book written in 1966, and he basically covers how, technically speaking, only 15% of your market is ever going to really have a problem. Now, the way that would work from the perspective of a funnel is that on the top of your funnel, you basically have as many eyeballs going to your page. And at the top, of course, they're unaware. Then the more they go through your landing page, watch your video, they become aware, and basically only the 15% end up at the bottom of your funnel, meaning they'll show up on a call and they'll potentially be able to buy. But the point is that you basically just focus on these 15% and you say fuck you to all the other people, the 85%, which as a result, hey, monkey see, monkey do, right? So if that's what everyone does, then hey, I'm gonna hard sell to everyone as well. I'm gonna do that same approach because if that's the only way they make money, that's how I should be doing it. And that also leads to so many people going on these calls basically being forced an offer down their throat, which has a bit of a negative effect because, well, the market gets really sick of it, and also it leads to a gigantic cost per lead and cost per acquisition. What I mean by this is if everyone's doing the same approach, and if no one really trusts you before they get on a call with you, it's very obvious that they're gonna get used to these schemes and methods of selling, which leads to saturation, skepticism, and of course, people going in on a call feeling like they're gonna be sold to, which will result naturally into a lower close rate and thus a higher cost per acquisition. This, like I said, leads to that lower close rate and people not being as qualified to actually work with you because they don't really care about, hey, they can help me. Here's a fat guarantee and I wanna know how I get it. It means the only way you're gonna scale this up is by having higher sales calls, which will lead to you, if you're gonna need more sales calls, you're gonna need more hands on deck, right? You're gonna need a bigger team. But if you have a bigger team, your overheads will increase. And if you have bigger overheads, that means you need to do even more sales calls to actually cover those overheads to start making profit, meaning your profit margins go down abysmally. Now, this looks like shit. And truthfully speaking, I never want to run a business like this. In fact, all the clients I work with, I do everything to shy them away from this approach. But that's not all, because it actually got a little worse. You see, back in 2019 and 2020, COVID hit the market. Good old COVID. And it actually accelerated the online info space, the online internet world, if I can frame it that way, and the trust recession all at once. Because, hey, everyone was forced online. And because we couldn't be spending in-person networking and the online world was a complete different space for businesses back in 2019, how do I make money? The thesis was, how do I make money as fast as possible? Not the thesis I asked you earlier. And hey, guess who was waiting right behind the corner? Funnels! Because it was easy, right? You just make a funnel site, you make a big fat guarantee, you put someone on a call, you just make a call and you sell it to them and that's it, right? This led up to the speeding up of the online bullshit even faster because, hey, everyone now would go to out guaranteeing each other. So if the guarantee was get 10 clients in a month or your money back, then the guarantee became get 20 clients in 5 seconds or I'll buy you a Lamborghini. People started to outclaim each other saying we can do it better than those when they're literally doing the exact same thing. And at one point, if everyone's doing the same thing, then you might as well start bullshitting because how else are you going to get attention? Meaning the whole thesis was behind the question of how do I convince someone to work with me? How do I sell to someone? That, together with the rise of AI, which basically meant that, there's way more speed, way more accessibility, we can do so many things more effectively, but when you put it in the hands of the wrong people who only care about money, will mean that you get a shit ton of AI-generated courses that have low value, AI-generated content that only sells the purpose of selling, and a lot of AI-generated bullshit just because we want to make money. Drew a little devil over there because, there's no other purpose other than that. To feed the pockets of the people behind it. This is what eventually leads to that hamster wheel. Because if this is the game that you're playing, and that's essentially how you're going to be running your business, that means to answer the question, how do I scale this model more? You've got to do more. Think about it, right? This is how it looks like running a hamster wheel. You never got to stop running because you're always a hostage to your own business. It's anti-leverage in and of itself because look at this drawing over here. Think about it, right? Let's say, okay, we want to get more people to buy our service. Let's run up ad spend. Okay, we'll get more traffic. Great. We'll get more calls. And when we get more calls, we can close them. And when we close them, we get more clients. But the moment we get more clients, we can't actually scale more if you don't have capacity to deliver. So what do? You can really run it is you essentially go from the approach of course, more input leading to the same output. Let me run you through a scenario. Let's say now you decided, okay, I got 10 clients, that's my capacity. I want to scale this to 50 clients to do maybe 50,000 a month. Let's say each client equals 1K per month. Okay, great. So how am I going to scale that? I need someone who can actually take care of these clients. Great. You hire a customer service manager. That takes you time and it costs you money to train them. Great. But now I have 20 or 40 extra spots. How about I run up some ad spend? So you're spending money on ads, but because you're leading them to a low nurture style crazy claim guarantee the VSL landing page like everyone else, your traffic's generally going to be low quality because people who look for guarantees just want quick fixes. And then on that conversion side, because everyone else is doing the same fucking thing and offering the same guarantee, well, guess what's going to happen? The overall conversions are going to be lower. You're going to have to outcompete, and you're going to need more setters, more people on the front end to actually convert these people into a call. Okay, great. Let's say they get on a call. Because they're so low quality and they're so lowly nurtured, you're going to have to do way more sales calls just to get more clients. And then at one point you scale it up, you'll still need to do more delivery. And the only way you can scale it up further is doing more ad spend. And it's a perpetual loop of consistent bullshit. This leads to a bigger problem because you need more closers, a bigger team, more setters, you need higher traffic, and you need to fulfill. And after all of this, your revenue just completely goes to shit because you're spending 40 to 60% of your revenue on your team and ads. You're managing so many people, and you're no longer even enjoying what you're doing because it's just a permanent short-term clusterfuck of fuck, I need more people, I need more clients, and well, there goes your profit margins and you got a big headache. Now, this is an unfun business, and I don't want to do that, and I wouldn't recommend you go that route. And let's just say for the hypothesis that you're like, nah, I don't want to outsource it, I'm gonna do it myself. Well, then you're running into a new problem because by the time that you're doing all these sales calls and you got clients you're fulfilling, at one point you're like, fuck, I got no more space, I got no more time left. How do I actually take it further? And you've hit a natural bottleneck, and you're gonna get hamster wheeling away. Again, because the only way you scale is by doing more ads, there's no leverage. And to be honest, this just isn't a fun business. The profit margins are abysmal, it's a lot of headache, and the question I really want you to think about for just a moment is the following. Because why the hell did this become the norm? Why is this how businesses scale, at least in the info space? Because isn't this just a result of a bunch of literal clowns who wanted to just find a quick way to exploit the market for quick gains without any consequence other than just simply filling their pockets and having a bit of headache? I think it's a really stupid approach to the market, because if building a business was meant for freedom to actually serve people, this is like being stuck in 9-to-5 hell on fucking steroids with a shit ton of bullshit going on permanently. And I'm just really making this as visual as possible as I can, describing it that way, because I want you to see the perspective that I'm seeing it. So if running that style of business isn't an ideal approach at all, then, well, what do I do? If that's moving backwards, how do I actually take a step forward? And, well, actually, there is an approach that you can take, an approach that is a lot simpler. Simple, not easy, two different things, by the way. A lot simpler. It's the approach that I use to run and to scale my business as well as my clients. And I want to make a big fat FYI here, because you can implement everything I'm about to share with you here, and you'll already see a drastic shift. I know this, and I'm so confident in it because it's already happening. Not only am I experiencing it, there is a small wave of what I like to consider authentic creators who are already applying this to their businesses, and it's seeing a gigantic upside. Because for some reason, they seem to be running these businesses that are just crushing it. They've got a gigantic wave of buyers ready to work with them, raving fans, people who literally consider their models the only way to actually work through this all, and that's all because of running growth ecosystems. Now, I want to clarify something very important. This isn't about running schmuck tactics and methods, because methods come and go, they always fade. There's always going to be a better outreach strategy or a better ad setup, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm speaking about fundamentals that are required to properly scale and optimize a business. Because ecosystems have a fundamentally different approach, thesis, and purpose than when you compare them to funnels. And let me just break that down for you in a moment. This is my Imminent Growth Protocol. Quick little shout out here to another video I made. I have a complete breakdown of how I applied this protocol to build my $400,000 a year hybrid operating business. Give it a watch if you can. It's very effective, very well optimized and organized. It is very informative, and I know it'll give you more context, so do give that a watch when you get a chance. But yeah, this is based on my core model. Because the whole idea with an ecosystem versus a funnel isn't that you're selling on the call. You're letting your ecosystem do all the nurturing and the selling for you. You're creating real depth, real connections with your audience to such an extent that before they even hop on a call with you or open up any of your offers, they're already pre-sold and ready to buy. And look, I know it may seem a bit fluffy because you're probably thinking, okay, Vincent, so I guess I just have to post more content then, right? Well, not exactly. This isn't just about posting more content. It's about doing the fundamental right approach to scaling your business. Because I know creators who post 100 to thousands of posts in a span of a few months, people who have hundreds of thousands of followers who don't make a single penny online. And to understand why this is even the case, how this phenomenon even happened, let's take a look at fundamentally understanding how an online sale takes place. So what I have over here is a very, very curious picture by shout out Alex Hormozy, and you know who that is. I don't even have to cover it at this point. If you've read his book 100 Million Offers or scroll the internet on offers and building one, you've probably seen this curious little picture. Now, the reason why this equation, he calls it the value equation, is important is because it really shows you how you can determine the value of an offer. And this is really important to stipulate here. It's about how you determine the value, not how you actually sell an offer. Now, I do want to touch on this real quick because it's a very equation regardless. I use it as well because the way you fundamentally determine a value of an offer is you first figure out what the dream outcome is that your audience is trying to achieve. Because if you understand their dream outcome, you know what is valuable for them. Then you basically multiply it by the likelihood of achievement, meaning that if the dream outcome is very likely to be achieved and, well, really realistic, that's the word I should use here, the value of your offer goes up, right? And then you divide it by the amount of time it takes to actually achieve this outcome and the amount of effort and sacrifice. Essentially, if I tell you, yo, you can be a millionaire by the age of 100, sure, that's valuable, but if I'm 100, I mean, shit, that's like, what, 74 years from now, and I can barely enjoy it, and I'm gonna have to sacrifice 74 years, that isn't really valuable. If I told you I could snap my finger and make you a billionaire right now, I'm pretty certain you'd want to pay me a certain amount. Can I do that? Unfortunately not, but you get the point. Now, here's the thing. This equation is important when it comes to determining the value of an offer, but it is not what actually determines whether you make a sale or not. This is fundamental to know. Because to fundamentally sell an online offer in 2025, you need 3 yeses. Now, I found this after having done a total of actually more than $750,000 in cash collected between my clients and my own business. And I found that overall, for anyone to ever buy your service, it doesn't matter if it's high ticket, low ticket, or mid ticket, there needs to be 3 yeses. A yes to the outcome that we just covered based on the value equation, but it's not just enough for someone to see an outcome. They need to have a big fat yes to the method, which is the vehicle that you're using to get them from point A, where they're at right now, to point B, their outcome. And here's the kicker. There needs to be a yes to you. And this also fundamentally explains why funnels are dying. Let me break it down. The logic behind a funnel, if we just take a little look from the perspective of those 3 yeses, first of all, let's cover the outcome. So yes, I mean, sure, technically speaking, you have a pretty clear outcome. Get 100 plus calls booked with 100% guarantees each month, or you get your money back and $5,000, right? So technically speaking, hell yeah, who doesn't want that? But here's where it goes wrong. Because the method isn't by using the Imminent Growth Protocol or a system that is profound and really works, it's by the guarantee. The guarantee is technically the method. The moment someone hears guarantee, the ooga booga brain of safety and avoiding fear pops up. You completely avoid everything else that's there, and it's like, oh, I can, it's guaranteed. Because what happens is basically, as long as this works, I don't care, because I have no faith in myself or what I serve, and so I just want a quick fix. That is the typical response that a guarantee would elicit. And here's the other thing. Because so many people are offering guarantees, it's causing saturation. Sorry, let me make this red real quick. It's causing saturation within this method or market. You see, there is no more unique method. The unique method is the guarantee. And if everyone else is offering a unique method of a guarantee, then what you get is everyone bidding and outcompeting in their guarantees. So let's take a look at this little thing over here. If you were to consider the value equation being that, the dream outcome is still green, but perceived likelihood of achievement, time delay, and sacrifice, that's just all fucked off by the guarantee. Meaning that technically speaking, the value of your offer here, if you were to look at this equation over here, what you'd see is technically that the value of it is determined based on the dream outcome divided by the guarantee. And this is where it gets really interesting. If everyone's offering a guarantee, then the guarantee's value goes down, or well, really the guarantee technically is higher if you consider it from the perspective of the denominator. I think that's a word, the denominator, meaning that the value of your offer becomes a commodity because the dream outcome is the same. I want the same dream outcome. Everyone can offer me the dream outcome because it's my dream outcome. And the guarantee is the same. Everyone has the same, guarantee. Meaning that typically speaking, funnel offers fall under the line of becoming a commodity. And really that's the prediction I have for funnels as well. These types of guarantee offers will become a commodity, and the only way they become uncommoditized is by simply saying, well, fuck it. Better guarantee, outbidding. And lastly, let's take at the final one, the you. I'm just putting a clown emoji here because really honestly, there is no yes to you when you're running a funnel. People don't give a fuck about you, they give a fuck about your guarantee. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why funnels run into that hamster wheel problem. Because of all of this, cost per acquisition goes up drastically because everyone's offering the same thing. There is really low value in your offer because it's basically a commodity at this point, and no one really trusts you, meaning low level of qualified leads, meaning we have to convince them that our guarantee guarantee is actually going to work versus our other competitor, if you want to call it this way, or our other clown, and it all just ends up at the exact same place. And so to give you the other perspective of where ecosystems come into this, which really is ecosystems give a breath of fresh air to this market, and why I truly believe they're fundamentally superior and a lot different compared to funnels in this case, let's take a look at comparing them side to side. And I really wanted to run it from a thesis perspective again, because the thesis and the questions you ask is eventually what will lead you to a certain outcome. So let us compare them. I put them side to side over here. If a funnel would ask, how do I get as many cold eyeballs to see my business and get interest into my offer by filtering only the people aware of a problem and saying fuck you to everyone else so I can sell and make money fast with a big fat clown emoji, this is what I like to consider sales-based conversion. The only way you convert someone is by selling, and this obviously will lead to a low qualification rate. If people are unconvinced and you have to force sell them, it basically means sell or kill the lead. Meaning you're going to result into a high volume of calls with a very low close rate, meaning you're constantly objection handling because no one's really convinced by you, because if you look again at the perspective of what is required to sell, we're just missing so many things here, and it's so heavily objection. And of course, the profit margins are very low as a result, meaning that the business is also not fun and it can be quite complex to run a gigantic team. But let's compare it now to an ecosystem. I'll get there in just a moment how an ecosystem fits it all, but the question and the thesis within an ecosystem is super important, right? The whole point is, how do I get to share my philosophies, ideas, models, and thesis with as many cold eyeballs? That's the similar point, right? Like, you're still focusing on a cold eyeball, but you're not saying how do I get as many eyeballs to sell. You're saying how do I get to share my philosophies, ideas, models, and theses with as many cold eyeballs in a way that genuinely resonates with them, building a connection and naturally having them gain interest in my offer in a way that if they aligned and are my ICA, it'll allow me to serve them. I know that was a mouthful. I had to write it out for you like that just to make the point, because this is what I call ecosystem-based conversions. The point is, if you run your thesis in your business like that, you'll get highly qualified leads regardless, because you're speaking to the right people. And typically speaking, they'll be ready to be served. The sales will technically be easier because you're only serving the people who are ready. The volume of your calls will be rather low because you don't have to go on that many calls to convince people, because they already know you can serve them, meaning your high close rate will be established. As a result, you typically don't really get any value objections because the value is so clear and your profit margins are really simple. And why does that work? How does that come together? This requires you to really see the perspective of how, again, you sell an offer. So let's turn it into how this works from an ecosystem perspective. There's always going to be a fat yes to the outcome. Why? Because your ecosystem reflects it. What you speak about in your ecosystem, the content you put out there, long form, short form, whatever you call it, in your own lifestyle and the way you present your content, it'll reflect the outcome that your audience desires. The values and philosophies you share also reflect the outcome that your audience desires, and your knowledge is what your audience desires, meaning you already get a yes to the outcome. And typically speaking, there's going to be an absolute fat yes to the method, because throughout your video, you're subtly and or explicitly explaining your method in your content, just like I broke down my ecosystem method and the Imminent Growth Protocol. And lastly, there's going to be a yes to you, because you're not forcing someone on a landing page where they have to go and sit down and watch a video and see you yapping about a guarantee, not really giving a fuck about you anyways, because the only thing they're here for is the guarantee. No, instead they're here to spend time with you because you have something of value that they would gladly exchange their time to listen to. And I find this incredibly fascinating because I haven't found anyone explain it like this. That's why I'm explaining this to you, because I found it, well, I mean, technically speaking, I am probably the biggest nerd on the planet, but I found it so fascinating because when I found this, it was so much more fundamentally easy and structured to actually run a business properly. And I just had to drag this up here because these 3 yeses happen when you run the protocol properly. And I'll explain just in a moment how that works, but let me explain to you and give you a bit of a more scientific, or I guess study-based reason as to why this works. And let's consider Google's 7-11-4 rule. Now, if you don't know what this is at this point, I don't even know if you're on the internet because I've heard probably every creator talk about it, but how about I give you a more scientific and fundamental approach as to why this happens in retrospect, as to why people buy an offer in the first place. Because hey, the 7-11-4 rule by Google basically says that for anyone to buy your services online, they need to spend 7 hours of time consuming your content. They need to do that across 11 touch points, which is basically your customer journey, and at 4 separate platforms. Now, this technically, in my honest opinion, professional opinion, works different in the info and service space simply because I feel like for this to work and to be representative, this would represent all markets. And of course, buying something like a product, like a sock, is a very different buyer journey than with info. But I've typically found that with info, it somewhat still stays the same. You want people to consume as much time as you as possible across your different or their different touch points representing the pain points, symptoms they have, at least 2 separate platforms, Instagram and YouTube in this case, right? And let me break down how that really works, because what you are going to see that by doing this, you naturally get a yes to the outcome, yes to the method, and yes to you from your audience. And this fundamentally really is what builds trust. This is what gets you that authority. This is what makes it so that your audience is ready to buy from you and doesn't fuck around on a landing page looking at every other guarantee. This is what makes you a one of one coach, creator, operator, brand in this case. The point is that this isn't about being everywhere. It's not about putting your ad spend and being in every corner on the planet. It's about reaching the right people with the right message and being intentional with what you share. It's about being so resonant with your audience that by the time they even are going to book a call with you or actually show up in your DM saying, I want to work with you, they've already bought from you in their own mind. But before I continue, the thesis makes a lot of sense, and of course it's a thesis, but let me show you how you actually execute it, which brings me to point 3 of this video, the 5-step roadmap to scale to 40K a month with a 70% close rate and get a yes to each of these prerequisites. And how I'm going to do this, I'm going to run you through every single step of the 3 yeses and how you can turn it into a yes for your own business. And I want to emphasize, if your ecosystem is weak, there is no point to running traffic. There is no point to running an ad, because you're just going to get people onto a very weak ecosystem with no backing, making them wonder what the fuck is the point of this. So let's jump into it. First of all, number 1 step is determining your core expertise and knowing how you serve anyone. And the reason, obviously, why this is so important is because if you do not know exactly what you're good at and how you can serve a person, it's pretty much impossible to build an ecosystem around that. And one thing that I found very effective to start building an ecosystem is consider who you serve and start breaking it down in a case. What made the difference? What is the exact thing that helped the person, your audience, go from point A from point B? Extract what you did and turn it into some form of a framework. Because without a clear expertise and without knowing exactly what you're good at, it's impossible to get a yes, and in fact you'll get a big fat no to each of these 3 prerequisites. And to give you an example, for me it's helping info businesses and operators, in this case coaches, creators, consultants, or agencies, scale their offer to 20K a month with a simple high profit margin business and a growth ecosystem. This is my core expertise. This is what I'm really good at. This is what I nerd out about every single day, and it's also how I serve my clients. Then step 2, which is to know your audience, and this is how you're going to get a big fat green to the first yes, the outcome. Because the goal here is that you need to be so clear on the exact problem you solve or the solution you bring into the market, because otherwise the outcome is really vague and it's a big fat X on your chart over here. And here's a big tip. A lot of people, and a lot of times when I onboard my clients or when I work with people on a one-on-one basis, the question they ask me is, hey Vince, I serve this person, that person, and they're kind of different, right? There's a different niche. Well, here's the tip. The problem is the niche. See, you can be serving a lot of different people. In my case, I serve coaches, creators, consultants. They're info offers, right? They scale in info business. But I also work with agencies, freelancers, in this case, copywriters, operators, people who help other info businesses. And technically speaking, they're complete different niches. The one is an operator, the one is actually a coach. But here's the thing, they have the same problem. Both of them struggle with inconsistent client acquisition. Both of these niches or this audience has a complex operational system with high costs. They typically suffer from low profit margins, and they typically have low client success and high churn because they're not sure how to optimize their ecosystem well, meaning that I can structure my content inside of my ecosystem around these challenges in videos like these. And a really important tip is that you do not fluff or bullshit around content. Please don't create content for the sake of content. Produce things that are actually good. I heard this one time, a really good saying, which is a lot of coaches, a lot of people think I'm going to save all my best information for when I'm going essentially to work with someone. And I think that's a big flaw. Put your best information out there, videos like these that I'm making, but actually save the implementation, the what steps do I take, how do I do it in my scenario, in the perspective of your client, for when they work with you and when they pay you. This is really important for me to mention, because if you do this correctly, you've turned the first X into a yes, meaning that currently this is where we stand. So that brings me to the 3rd point. Step number 3, create your unique method and your leveraged offer. Now, you've probably heard me talk about leverage offer a while now, because the method you serve people with is the vehicle by which you help them achieve their desired outcome. Think about it in your cases. Let's think about Charlie here for a moment. Actually, I'll break him down later, but I'm just going to quickly mention it. With Charlie, he was stuck at 5K per month with in-person coaching, and using the growth protocol, following the correct steps, really the roadmap, if I will, that got him to eventually to now running a 25K per month business. And for me, of course, the Imminent Growth Protocol is my core method. It is a 7-step model that I run through every single client of mine to help them get a complete clarity on who they serve, how they serve it, build their ecosystem so that we can actually turn up, in this case, ad spend or traffic, could be organic too, if that is already part of what's happening, so that we can serve as many people ethically in a good way with high profit margins. And when you do this properly, basically what I focus on with my method is I have 3 different ways of serving people. And the important thing with your method is that you have a really cool way of serving people. See, in my case, I call myself a hybrid operator or the hybrid consultant method. Shout out Fred, I took a lot of inspiration from it in building this because essentially, here's the key. That method that I just mentioned, that vehicle that I help people with, that is essentially a roadmap. See, I could either drive the vehicle for them, I could tell them how to build the vehicle, or essentially I could teach them how to drive the vehicle. Do you get the analogy here? The point is that there are multiple ways to serve people. In my specific case, I can serve people by helping them implement this vehicle into their business. That's done for you. In this case, it's an agency type service, and this is where I really partner with info businesses. And this is only for my 1% audience. I'm not going to offer this to everyone because not everyone also meets the criteria that is relevant for me to be able to serve them. Then we have my Done With You offer. This is my mentorship where I work one-on-one with my clients, coaches, info businesses, operators, agency owners to help them scale up their business using this model. And this typically goes to my 5 to 20% audience. And what you saw earlier in this video, the $154,200 that I closed was purely on my Done With You offer, mind you. And then of course I have my DIY offer, which is basically a remainder one-time offer. This is for the people who want to build their own car. They still follow the exact same methodology. They still follow the exact same principles, but instead of getting my guidance on the way, I basically give them access to all my resources, structures, KPIs, SOPs, so they can implement it themselves. Basically, by doing this correctly, what you end up getting is that the method gets a yes, because a method is the perfect vehicle to the outcome. The method is literally the vehicle that gets them to their desired outcome and is proven and it makes sense. And in this way, your offer is structured inside of your ecosystem so that your audience is pre-sold on your method. What I mean by this is your method is always presented in every piece of content throughout your ecosystem because it is the thing that makes the outcome that your audience wants doable. And I want to just quickly jump on this real quick because this is the exact problem with funnels. What happens is with funnels, the guarantee becomes the vehicle to the outcome. And if a guarantee is a vehicle, guarantee is air. Like, how do you guarantee a coaching client that if they do this thing, it'll work out for them? How do you guarantee anything? It becomes a big question of what the fuckery. And basically, that's what causes the method to become a red in a funnel. Now, of course, now that you have these 2 greens, the only last thing, which is kind of obvious, is getting a green to you. And that's my favorite part of running growth ecosystems. And quite frankly, this is probably also the most difficult step in this entire process, simply because this is where the absolute clowns and people with no personality, ethics, values, norms, or real whys are separated from the genuine human beings like you and I. Because fundamentally speaking, this is where brands and funnels or businesses are separated from one another. Let's take a little thought experiment here for a moment. Let's think of, like in this case, Gary Vee, Alex Hormozi, Tony Robbins, all of these big entrepreneurs that you know. Let's say for just a moment they came up to you and you said, hey, I have an offer that I could, work with you. It's only going to be 5K. Are you going to think about that twice? By now, and you can extrapolate the number to any number that's reasonable for you. That's not the point here. But the point is, before you even consider the price they put up, their method, or how they're going to help you, you've already said yes to them because you consumed hours of content. You know exactly who they are, what they stand for. You resonate with them so much to the extent that just take my money. I want to work with you because I know you're good and I know you can help me. So the way you do that is by building your growth ecosystem. Your ecosystem needs to be surrounding you. It needs to encapsulate you. It needs to be extrapolations of your values, your norms, your ethics, your personality, what you stand for, the things you do, because then you get the final yes. And it really is difficult because it requires you to be actually a human. It requires you to have a personality. Bro scalers, beware. Personalities are a thing. Because the truth is, when you have a personality and when you're actually a human being, then you can start making content, right? You can actually share your journey. You can be authentic. You can talk about the things that you really believe in. You can nerd out on the internet like I'm doing right now. The point is that you just share whatever you want to share. Now, of course, be to an extent politically correct. I'm not here to judge you on your political views or whatever the hell. You can do what you want. Just don't be the guy who says that if you don't work with me, you're a loser, autistic, or gay. Because honestly, that's really despicable. That's very disrespectful. And if that's how you present yourself, man, do you even have any self-worth or value? Just don't be that guy, please. Because at the end of the day, even if you watch my podcast, the things I've come across, I talk about my trauma a lot. I talk about the things that I overcame because I know that if I speak about it, another human in this earth will resonate with it with the intent not to sell to them, but I genuinely believe I can serve them. Because all you want to do, and this is really how my ecosystem looks like, I'll break it down for you, is I basically am active on Instagram and YouTube. Instagram is essentially where I get the majority of my traffic to interact with me. We have DM conversations. I like connecting with people. I like understanding where they're at with their business. And to really run traffic to my ecosystem, I run ads, 10% of my profit, and I also run organic content and stories. You'll see me on there a lot, sharing some wins, sharing what I'm doing. I'm actually traveling later today when I'm making this video, so you might have seen me post something about that on my story today. And then I post organic long-form content on my YouTube. Now, here's the crazy thing about an ecosystem, right? Check this out. I only have... Let me zoom in for you. Well, you saw it earlier. I only have 187 subscribers on my profile. And in the last 28 days, I got over 5K views, but the number of views isn't relevant. 107 hours of watch time, spending time with me. Which I think is bizarre, not because it's not fun to spend time with me, that's not what I'm trying to say, but because of how much time people have spent with me. And it's not surprising because this one video I posted, plugging this video real quick because it's a really good video, go watch it, got 75.1 hours of watch time. And the crazy thing is that this video literally converted $41,000 in the past 3 weeks since I uploaded it at the start of June. In fact, the watch time on this video was 73% of my last overall monthly watch time, which means that because people are spending so much time with me, they understand what I do and my content breaks down also the challenges of my ICAs, people like yourself watching this. I'm just being true to myself and doing what I really believe in, meaning that my messaging, let me write that out real quick, it's gonna be in green, messaging is also dialed. As a result, well, I got a yes to the outcome, the method, and in this case, you, or in this case, me. That's the prerequisites, because once you have an ecosystem that meets all these trees, the only last step that you have to do, quite frankly, is just running up your traffic and producing more content. Now, quick little note, and I really want to emphasize this. I see a lot of people skipping these steps because point is, if you don't follow steps 1 to 4 properly and execute this, what will end up happening is that by the time you turn up your ads or start getting more traffic in, your offer is unclear, your method's going to be vague, your messaging is dispersed, and your ecosystem will lack clarity, which also will mean that it will not resonate with your audience, resulting into you not getting that beautiful green that you want over here, but really it becoming a big fat red. Now, I don't want that for you, so I want to emphasize that. But all we do from here is essentially you want to optimize for traffic generation. And there's multiple ways to do this. Let me give you some examples. One way to do it is to redirect existing traffic from a large ecosystem to your nurture assets. This is what we did for my client Caroline. Shout out Caroline. What we essentially did is that she already had a large ecosystem of 750,000 followers. And instead of going, okay, we're going to run ads because we want to run ads, we basically redirected them to a page where they could learn more about her upcoming program. Because of the size of her ecosystem, the amount of people and the amount of traffic she got, that was the most optimal way to do it. Now, a second way to do it is to set up cold traffic sources like an ad and draw new attention to your ecosystem and to nurture it. And this is the approach that I used myself. Essentially, what I did here is I basically spent 10% of my profit on ads. I got people into my ecosystem like I showed you earlier, where it also nurtures them. And then I also redirected my existing audience on Instagram with less than 3,000 followers to actual nurture assets. And then another way to do this is have a hybrid approach. Let's say you already have a large ecosystem, but you also want to leverage paid traffic. That's what we did with Charlie and Nicole. And it's how I approached it with them in that sense, because what we really did is Nicole had a roughly 15k followers, Charlie had around 50k followers on IG, and what we essentially did was we ran an ad additionally to attract more people into their ecosystem, while also optimizing all of that to their YouTube channel, to their nurture assets, so that their audience could understand there's a really good way they can help them, spend a lot of time with them, and eventually be pre-sold. And here's a big note: if you are running a low budget, if you don't have a big ecosystem at all, if you're at the absolute start and you're lacking cases, testimonials, a really good way to do this is to leverage cold outreach. It works. But here's the thing with cold outreach. Everyone's like, how do I do cold outreach well? If you're showing up with a profile that looks like an absolute random, what do you expect is going to happen, even if you outreach? And this is what we did with Eddie. Eddie already had some good content. He only has 1,000 followers, and Eddie signed a $25,500 contract recently. Why? Because he did everything right. We built out his leverage offer. We had a pretty decent amount of content in his ecosystem so that when we approached someone through his outreach strategy that we ran, he was able to get a lot of people interested and eventually closed a really good deal. Now, and here's a little bonus for you. How can you run traffic without ever going on a sales call? I'll get to there in just a moment, but essentially the whole thesis is you got to get a yes to all these trees. If people spend enough time with you, then what's going to end up happening essentially is that they'll decide to work with you if it is a good fit. Because they know what you're good at, they know the outcome you can help them with, and they're familiar with your method. And of course, depending on the type of traffic source you run, depending on your offer, you can decide what type of nurture mechanism and conversion mechanism you want to run. For Caroline, because she's running a $797 trauma program, it doesn't make sense to go on a sales call to close, so instead we opted in for an email-based conversion mechanism. For Charlie and Nicole's doing a high-ticket offer, Charlie as well, sales calls make sense, but Charlie also recently launched his mid-ticket and low-ticket offer. For those, we're doing email-based conversions as well. This really depends on where you're at and the scenario that you're in, and I really recommend you watch the video that I made on exactly how I built my ecosystem. It goes deeper into conversion mechanisms as well. So anyways, going back to it, at the end of the point, all I'm trying to communicate here is that you get a yes to all of these 3 points. Because by the time the traffic either enters your ecosystem or before you reach out, essentially before you run a call to action, a story, or you DM someone, your audience already said yes to all 3 of those yeses. Meaning that you don't need to objection handle anything on a value-based perspective because your audience already knows you can serve them, and the only question left is, hey, can I serve you? To give you some proven samples of these are a few DMs that I got that I closed with an exception of one. And this is all coming from that one video that I showed you earlier that I ran. I'll let my editor link it up real quick. But as you can see it here, on the 14th of June, this guy came over into my ecosystem in Instagram. He saw my YouTube video, said, hey bro, saw your video, thought I'd drop you a follow here, liked how you explain things. Is it possible for me to book a call with you, learn about your mentorship program? Now, I didn't say yes immediately because I'm not just going to go on a call with someone. I don't want to sell to you. So I asked him, hey man, could you share a bit more? We had a short DM conversation, and 2 days later he closed and paid me for mentorship. Then here's another one. Hey Vincent, hope you're doing well. Just landed on your Nicole's case study video on YouTube. Loved it. I'd like to know what the base I can benefit from your help. Still at the beginning of my journey. Let me know. Have a good day. I also had a quick DM conversation with him. Again, I optimize for DM conversations because of the current offers I run and my ecosystem size. More on this in that video that I mentioned. And they closed him on June 20th. This was on June 18th. And then here's another one. Hey, by the way, I'm still at half of the video, but I feel like we had a pretty much the same journey and I'm facing the same problems you faced in the past. Most important thing, in my opinion, we have the same core rules. Proving that here I already got a yes to, well, me. The method was very clear and he was in the same issues, and what I'm living and experiencing right now is the outcome he wants. And I closed him on the 26th of June. And here's one more conversation that recently came in that I just booked in. This is almost 100% going to be a close. I know it for a fact because I know exactly what the person's scenario is. I know where they're at in their journey and I know they're struggling. And the reason I know this is going to be a close is because I know I can serve her. To me, this isn't about getting paid. It's about the fact that I genuinely can serve her. So I know I can help her and I'll find a way to help her regardless. And one more little thing, got my first DM closed not too long ago, and this was really awesome, right? As you can see over here, this is written in Dutch, but this person said that he can split the payment over 4 months and we can start ASAP, and that can be how it worked. And then he sent over his information and we just got started. I sent him over an invoice and he paid. The crazy thing about this is that this was on the 19th of June. That was literally a few days, 2 weeks after I posted that one video I mentioned, and this was it only happened because every single one of these people spent hours with me. They knew my core philosophy, my ideas, the thesis and modules. They said a big fat yes to me. They knew about my method and how I could help them, and I wove it into my content, meaning there was a big fat yes to the method. They wanted the outcome that I achieved and that I reflect in my content, meaning there's a yes to the outcome. And well, because of that, none of them had any objections. I didn't have to go on a call to sell. I could just focus on serving, ethically in fact, which makes me of course very happy. And That's it. I want to give you another example of my client Charlie, who the jazz piano coach, who shout out Charlie, man, I am so fucking proud of you. This guy's an absolute legend. Look at him smiling over there. He's really happy, and I'm really happy for him as well, because we optimized his ecosystem this month of June, and he hit $25,000 after doing this. We literally got him to only post 2 proper YouTube videos breaking down his entire structure method offer that we created using the growth protocol. He grew about 2,000 subscribers-ish to getting 4,500 subscribers. This one video absolutely popped off because, hey, he's one of the first in his niche to actually approach this method properly the way that we run it through the Imminent Growth Protocol. After we optimized just his internal YouTube ecosystem, the nurture assets that I'm talking about, he literally gained 4,500 subscribers since launching, meaning he's now at almost 7,000 subs. In 2 weeks, his one video got 56,000 views. And here's the thing, they weren't just random views either. This video wasn't optimized for virality. It was made with a very specific purpose to really share how we can help people. And in just these 2 weeks, he literally closed so much out of it, and I love that for him. He went from literally going to 5K in-person coaching to now running a 25K per month coaching business, which is amazing. And as he even says it over here, the academy been selling, and well, where is it? His closing rate has gone up insanely because all the people who he needed to convince to buy his piano coaching offer now already understand where he can help them with, the method he can serve them with, and well, they're pretty convinced by Charlie because Charlie is a really awesome guy. So to conclude, that's really what it comes down to. From here on, you can go in 2 ways in my eyes. You can either go the bro skiller route, shout out bro skillers with no self-esteem. You can go in the route where you basically have no leverage or long-term plan, you're permanently short-term running it. You're always in a hamster wheel. You do over 100 calls per month or week. You always deal with unqualified shit leads with a low closing rate and permanent objection handling and brain damage. And well, you have a low profit margin business with a really big team. Or you're in the growth ecosystem. You go for short and long-term balance, which in my opinion is really essential. You just have to split it properly, 20-80, 70-30, depends on the season you're at. You build an exponentially fun flywheel. Instead of going, for 100 calls per month, you only do 0 to 15 calls per month for the exact same cash collected amount. You run a business with 0 objections, with high qualified leads who are ready to buy from you, and well, you have high profit margins. Or to make it really easy for you and to really emphasize the picture, you can run a business where you do 60 calls with 12 closes, 20% close rate, and ooga booga bro scaling mentality, or a business that does 15 calls with 12 closes, 80 to 100% close rate, that's intentionally optimized for growth. And really what that comes down to is you can either run a business by asking the questions of how can I objection handle better and how can I convert as many eyeballs as possible for as max cash as quickly, or you can ask the way better questions of how can I serve so well I never get any objections, and how can I truthfully serve as many honest, amazing human beings without compromising my values or ethics or spending hours on a call to convince or sell to people, and instead sharing my thesis so clearly that it resonates with my audience, making it so I'm allowed to serve them. See, this, and really we're just going full circle at this point, this is the answer to exactly how I earned and really close to $154,200 in 120 days with a 70% close rate and 35 calls. Case closed. So to conclude this video, I want to jump back into a statement I made earlier, because I genuinely believe that if you're a really, really good coach, creator, operator, agency, and you genuinely wish to serve people from your honest heart in a way that makes sense, that is fun and really light and gets you high profit margins, that if you're asking the questions of how do I convert as many eyeballs as quickly as possible, you're playing the wrong game. Because this question will, as I just showcased, inevitably lead you onto the path of bro scalers and perpetuate the reality of a big team, a lot of complexity, headaches, and bullshit onto your business, which honestly I don't think is worth it. Because the truth is, the best way to handle objections is, well, never to get any. Because while your typical bro scalers and funnel clowns focus on converting the 15% of the market with their crazy bold claims and guarantees and all of that, the 15% of the market actually respects you, resonates with you, knows how you can truly help them. And while the other 85% of the market, they just need some time to warm up to you and to understand what you really do and get clear on their own problems, because when the time comes, they'll work with you. And I know that because your ecosystem covers it. It's very clear what you do, so the outcome's a yes. It's very clear how you help people, meaning the method is a fat yes. And of course it's a yes to you because you're honest, genuine, and you know what you're doing. And that is the key, people. That's exactly how I did all of this. That's how I built my business. It's why I'm so grateful I can build this. Now, I also have a very exciting announcement to make that I'm really happy I can share out loud, because over the past 4 months, I've built quite a beautiful business. I've built the collective, my one-on-one program, where I'm helping coaches and info businesses, and info operators, I should say in this case, scale up to multiple 5 figures per month. And I've gotten immense and really good positive feedback, as well as with my done-for-you clients. And because of that, I've decided I'm going to build and really create a bigger, more expansive and detailed view on the Imminent Growth Protocol and model in a 7-step series where I basically am going to break down every single step that you, whether you're an info operator, coach, creator, or an info, in this case an agency I should say, can scale to 20K per month minimum following every single step. And I'm really excited to do it, so that's going to be coming very soon. Make sure to leave a subscribe if you're excited for that. Now in the meantime, if you do want to learn a bit more about my ecosystem method, how I ran it, how I scaled my business, I have a video that I'll link up here that you can watch to really go over it, to understand a bit more about the Growth Protocol. And I also have 2 really awesome cases of my clients, Nicole and Caroline, breaking down 2 different ecosystems, one with a high ticket offer and one with a mid ticket offer, so you can see what the differences is in how we ran those ecosystems and the flywheels behind it. And in the meantime, if you're a coach, creator, operator, agency, and you're trying to figure out exactly how to make this pivot from a hamster wheel into a proper ecosystem, you're feeling stuck around the way the same way I did at the beginning of this video, where you're kind of constantly relying on either outreach or ads and organic, you're just shooting in the mist and you have no idea what's actually going on, then I have some good news, because every month I do open up a few spots to work with me closely one-on-one. Depending on where you're at in your journey, I'd love to have a little chat with you, so make sure to send me over a Instagram DM with the keyword grow. We can have a little chat, I'll figure out where you're at, and if it makes sense, if it aligns, then I'd be happy to see if I can help you along the way in your journey. So that's it everyone, hope you enjoyed this one, and I'm looking forward to sharing the series soon. There's some more cool case studies coming as well with Charlie and a few more students of mine, so be on the lookout for that, and have a beautiful day, and good luck scaling. Cheers.